Eric Gil here. I'm with my esteemed brother in Christ, George Smith. I'm honored to have you here, man.
It's really an honor to be here, for real.
So where did we meet? I think we met like what, 7-8 years ago?
It was 7-8 years ago at Arabian Nights.
That's right, Arabian Nights. What was your situation at that time?
I was dating, my wife, Natasha, right? I was in marketing back then,
Okay.
with attorneys and doctors or whatnot. And yeah, man, I was just hustling, really. I was working and trying to build my own company, and
so
I was lost, man. I remember going to that meeting and I was lost, man. I just had no direction in my life. And it's funny enough, my brother was the one that invited me there. My oldest brother, Pablo.
Right. I remember. So your thing is, okay, you come to the Lord, God reveals to you that you've got to make a transformation in your life.
Yeah, so backtracking. So I started there because my brother invited me there. We're, 8, 10 of us there? Yeah. And I remember the first time, because I was lost at that point in my life. I was like, I needed something. And my brother, I remember, invited me. He goes, let's go to this men's group. There's a few of us at Arabian Nights.
Mm-hmm.
It was a spot, it was a restaurant that Tony owned here in Doral. And the first meeting, we were reading that book by Ed Cole.
Maximize Manhood.
Maximize Manhood.
That thing transformed my life.
I remember sitting down there and, man, that was the first time I met you. I met Pastor. I met Carrigal. And a few brothers. It was a small table. We were sitting in the back. And Joaquin, Pastor, was reading out of this book, and everything that he was reading it hit me so hard. Like, it was black and white. I was like, this is exactly what I needed to hear my whole entire life.
Was it a thing where you immediately came out of that and you just were like, I need to cut everybody off? Or, was it a progressive thing? What was that impact like when you...
It's funny, that's a good question.
When you received that truth, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people freak out, and they like cut everybody off. Other people, they get paralysis by analysis, How did you deal with that?
So for me, it was different. For me, it was like, I was always kind of like checking the box. I would go to a different church on Sundays, and then on Saturdays and Fridays, I was terrorizing everybody. I was going crazy. But when at this point in my life, it was like I wanted something real. It was weird. I really wanted something legit, real, authentic. I felt like the church I was going to was good. It was more, I gave my heart to the Lord there, but I was still living my worldly life, which, I was partying, drinking. I would go to literally church with a hangover and then feel better about myself. And then,
So you're orbiting between these two places.
I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember during that time, I had just gotten back from a cruise and I was lost, man. My mind was just, I had no direction. And then for me, it was different. So I was looking for something real, at that time. And when I went to this meeting, that book, Maximize Manhood, kind of just pulled me, like, in a way. It was like, I knew it was biblical. I knew it was exactly what I needed to hear and what I was missing my entire life. So I left that meeting like telling myself, I've been living a lie this whole time, and I finally found where I needed to be. You know what I mean? And I was so excited. I felt like I was literally gliding.
So he drops a bomb on you, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, my life is never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm. So at that time, I was dating, who's my wife now, Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was so confused, literally. I had no direction. I didn't have an example. I didn't have anything. So I think during that time, me and her were thinking about moving in together.
Right.
And I remember I went up to Pastor and I said, hey, you said something about, not living together or whatever. I was about to move in with Natasha. Imagine being lost and then bringing in a girl with you
into that situation. What Ed Cole used to say, he had this famous saying that he used to say, how you leave one situation is how you enter
another one.
So it's like you're sitting here having premarital sex, fornicating, and hey, let's go start a family.
Pastor at the time, he said, hey, you guys, what I recommend is you don't do that, and you take some time off to see who you are in the Lord and see, if you guys are grounded and mature in Christ first before getting into that scenario. So mind you, I tell this to her and she freaks out. She goes, what do you mean? Like, obviously she comes from the world. She's like, you breaking up with me? Like, we're not
Right.
being together? Like, what's going on? And I was like, no, 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 it's not like that. We're just gonna take some time off.
Yeah. We're talking about
And it was
abstinence.
hard. It was
Basically, we're talking
hardcore.
about abstinence. We're talking about
Abstinence.
abstaining from,
Abstaining from
you know,
any
any,
sexual
right.
relations, any sleeping over, any of that stuff, which I
In the
was
world,
doing.
that's like
That's
nuts.
like normal, right? So imagine somebody tells you you can't do it anymore. You're like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? This is normal for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What world are you living in?
Right.
So she actually agreed. She goes, okay. I told her, this is the life we're going to be living, and this is, this is the promises. These are the promises God has for us, and if we want them, we got to do things right.
Amen.
We got to be obedient. And she agreed. It was so hard for us. It was.
How long
I think
did
it was
you? How long did you go through this?
1.5 long years.
Oh.
A long 1.5 years.
No, but I tell you, the thing is, like, you guys were in church, and it didn't look. I'm sure under the surface, you guys were suffering, but you made it look good, man. Because
Yeah.
you guys, you guys weren't bucking the system. You know how people,
Right.
they,
Yeah. Yeah.
they kind of
Hey,
go,
we're gonna meet up after church.
right. There's a lot of things that could have been done. Because the truth is,
Right.
if you've already had a relationship, one thing is if you haven't had a relationship with someone and someone's asking you
Right.
to abstain, that's
Yeah.
that's difficult. But one
Yeah.
thing is if you've already had a relationship and you're like, well, we were on our way to move in, let
Yeah.
alone complete.
Exactly.
So you guys don't buck the system. You go through this for a year and a half. What happens next?
I mean, it was hard, man. It was hard for us. So, and part of that was like, is this the real deal? Are these people real? And I had to answer that question. I had to kind of do my due diligence, right? And because you see a lot of these
Yeah.
pastors and Christians they say they're a real deal, and then you kind of see them flip flopping.
Right.
But with our pastor, Joaquin Molina, man, I looked into his life, and I remember him inviting us over his house,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, man, this guy is living it.
Yeah.
This is the real deal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I didn't need anything else at that point. I was like, all right, I'm 100% convinced. You know what I mean? Because you could say one thing, you could preach one thing, but are you living it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of the things that happened to me when I came to this ministry is that I always wanted a family, and although I had a family, I think those of us that come from dysfunctional backgrounds where things are not calibrated properly and you don't have a healthy environment that you're growing up in. And it's not just about mothers and fathers or drug addicts or anything like that. Maybe people are disconnected. Maybe you have discontented parents. There's a lot of contention in your house.
Yeah.
I think when you come to a ministry like this, what I see is that God has deposited the heart of a father into these pastors. Definitely our principal pastor, but as you start to meet other pastors, because that happened to me too, and I'm sure the same thing happened to you, you're like, all these guys are alike in many ways. They all have a heart for Jesus. They're all laying down their lives. They've all, sacrificed something for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you got. That was the
Yeah.
vibe that you got.
Yeah, exactly. And that spoke volumes to me, man. I saw that he was available. I
Right.
said, hey, I need to speak to you. He made himself available, and it was that. I think
Yeah.
it was availability, and it was authenticity. It was genuine. And he said it the way it was. It was black and white.
Right. Yeah, it was good.
The
Super
life I
good.
was living, where I always try to find a loophole around something. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, but he said it just straight up. Like black and white. He didn't try to sugarcoat anything, and that's what I needed to hear. You know what
So
I mean?
you being this age though, now you made a decision. Like, did you propose to Natasha, or what happened at the end of the year and a half?
I proposed to her on Valentine's Day. She said yes, and we had the wedding, I think, a year later. Yeah.
Super good.
And I wasn't financially, 100% making all this money, but
Right.
I had money saved, and we were able to make it happen.
No, I remember when you first started out, you had like a lawyer referral service.
Yeah.
And you had your car wrapped. One of the things that I appreciated with you was the relentless pursuit for growing your professional portfolio. Because it's like, to be 22 years old, hustling, grinding a living out, you just get married.
Yeah.
There's so many directions that you could have taken. And
Yeah.
now I look at you and, you're a professional, you're revered in your industry. the deals that you put together in the commercial real estate industry are huge. How did you go from transitioning from lawyer referral service to
Yeah,
$10
that's a good
million
question.
building, that you're selling?
I was in high school, and in the moment, I would say around junior year, I wake up one morning and literally cops come rushing into the house.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bunch of feds, and they take my mom. My mom gets locked up.
Right.
So during that time, it was rough. It was like things got real all of a sudden. You know what I mean? And I was, my dad wasn't really the breadwinner. My mom was, and so
What industry was she in?
in the medical industry.
That's
Yeah.
not a big thing down here.
That's
I don't
not a big thing.
understand. I
No.
don't understand how you get caught up in something like that in Florida. We have no medical issues.
Not in Miami.
No. Impossible.
And so, things got a little rough, because mom did everything around the house, So things got real quick, and I needed to mature a little quicker. I didn't go to college, and I needed to learn how to make money and kind of help out in the house a lot more. Because my two older brothers weren't in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And then my oldest brother he already moved out, he had his family, so he wasn't really, contributing as much, you know what I mean? So I needed to learn grown-up stuff a little quicker while I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And help my dad not lose the home and kind of all that situation. So that's where I, started that business with the legal referral service.
Right.
And it was kind of just jumping off the cliff and just fly.
And seeing how it would work.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, building a lot of relationships. I was so young. I had a stuttering problem at a young age. I had to meet with attorneys, and I would get like, I would get into this shock. Like I couldn't express myself to them.
I had no idea that you had that problem.
Yeah, man. I had a lot
I never noticed that. Really?
Well, obviously it's developed,
Yeah.
But I had so many thoughts, and a lot of that had to do with drugs. I did a lot of, when I was younger, I did a lot of drugs and stuff like that. So that affected me.
So now you being a Christian, because you had just become a Christian throughout starting that referral service, and being serious, there are a lot of back alley deals that are done in those.
There was a lot of back alley deals.
How do you, when that stuff comes to you, do you feel convicted? Do you just kind of chalk it up as, part of the game?
I definitely felt convicted. So it was different aspects of that business, but one of the sides of it was very shady, and I saw a lot of that happening. And then when I started going to church, I was like, man, I'm in the wrong place.
Right.
And during that time, I had that business going, and I was trying to transition out of it. And I started working with my older brother managing an anti-aging clinic.
I remember I went there.
Yeah.
And
I was already kind of in the transition because I was convicted.
No, absolutely. No, you did really good there. And they were like, well, Eric, we're going to give you a bunch of steroids. And I was like, I mean, I would really like that, but what about a blood? Can I get a blood test first? Like, and they were like, we're going to work you out.
We're going to make you look like Superman.
Yeah, I was like, wow. They were showing me pictures of people with gigantic muscles.
Very convincing.
Yeah, he was good. That guy would sell ice to an Eskimo. He was good. And I mean, I wasn't able to buy it. And to be completely honest with you, I didn't have the money. It was extremely expensive. I mean, like $1,100 a month. And I was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I love those muscles.
And listen, they got a lot of people in there, man.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of these firefighters, cops, lawyers.
Sure they did. Yeah.
So I started working with him, and my job there was it was the marketing side to try to franchise that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to do everything I could there, and I was already transitioning out of the accident business. I find out that my brother's partner was stealing money and the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is literally 2 weeks before getting married.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you have this kind of drama, have you ever felt? I'm referring to professional drama, and whether it be, those days or today. Do you ever bring that home and go, baby, you're not going to believe the idiot that blah, 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 blah. Do you do that? Or do you get zen about it and go upstairs and just lay low? Because I hear different things.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that's good. That's a good question. But
do you talk about work?
So I do talk about work with my wife.
Yeah, because you guys are really good friends.
Yeah, but not like, it depends what I tell her. It depends what I express her. If it's something crazy, I would. I'll share.
I mean, I guess like people's positions have always been, You go and you tell your wife.
I try not to bring the problems from work into the house.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say.
get zen. I say, give me a couple minutes. Let me decompress, and then
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
It's like, well, I was gonna sell a $10 million building, and now the deal is gone, and she's like, do we have to move out? You know, it's one of those things. I think that's the problem that people have.
I don't say
You know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get religious with this, but the truth is that God is our provision anyway. So whether
Exactly.
it's 20, $10 million buildings
Yeah.
or it really doesn't matter
Right.
because any way you look at it, He's the one that you know.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Everybody has their format and approach.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before you getting married,
Oh, that bomb drops.
anti-aging,
Oof.
second bomb.
So I'm freaking out. So I tell my brother, hey, your partner, doesn't want to show me financials, and I need to know because I am charge of marketing. And
Right.
so for me, obviously, I know there's a red flag. My brother is kind of just, he didn't know.
Yeah.
And I tell him, hey, I think you should do an audit because I think your partner's stealing money. Anyway, long story short, he was stealing money. My brother just tells me, just walk away. I go, walk away? What do you mean walk away?
Why don't we bring this
I'm
guy
getting
on
married.
charges?
I'm getting married in 2 weeks. We got to change the locks of these business, tell this guy to leave, and we're taking over. That's what I was thinking, you know? He goes, no, just walk away and don't worry about it. We'll start something else. Wow. At that time, he was good financially. He could have said that, and I wasn't.
Right.
I was kind of like, I had plans.
Right, of course.
I was getting married in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
So I needed to depend on this stuff.
I mean, that's a huge opportunity.
So at that time,
that.
everything just went crumbling on me, and I needed to go speak. I needed to go seek counsel. So that's when I met with Pastor, and I said, Pastor, this situation is happening, and I don't know what to do. And Pastor, gave me great advice, prayed with me. He said, anything you do will prosper. And we prayed and backtrack a little bit, rewind a little bit. In that anti-aging clinic, there was a friend of the family named Frank Trellis that went, and he would get treated there. And this guy was very well off, and he was a commercial real estate broker. And he saw me, he knew me since I was a kid, but he said, hey, I'm starting a commercial firm in Doral, and I think you would be a great candidate to be part of the team.
Wow.
I didn't even know what commercial real estate was. I had to Google it and say, what is commercial real estate?
Right.
And I saw they didn't make money for the first year, and I freaked out. I was like, oh, no way, I'm getting married. I'm going to, there's no way I could do this.
I'm going to be selling hot dogs by the courthouse.
For real.
Until I close the deal.
So I freaked out.
Oh, my gosh.
And obviously I prayed about it, and all that happened, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I still have my money coming in from the legal side.
Right.
At least
something
could kind of keep me on top of, afloat. And I went all in, man. So I got my license.
When you got married and you're getting your license, how were you getting your deals? Was it that you were cold calling, knocking on doors? Yeah. Because it's not like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like selling a $150,000 house. Like some of these buildings, like the building that we're in is like $5 million. Yeah. How do you convince somebody to buy something for $5 million?
So when I started at this office, man, there were like 2 or 3 other guys, young guys, commercial, industrial.
At Frank's place.
Yeah, it was called Cornerstone International Realty. I go in, I interviewed, it was Frank and Hector, were 2 guys, 2, partners. I was literally watching these other 2 guys that were, the agents, the brokers, the industrial brokers there. Mm-hmm. It took me 1 month, and I always tell this to my guys, I'm like, it took me 1 month to start picking up the phone and making a call. Knowing all the pressures, at this point, I'm already married, living in efficiency, and I have pressures of, providing and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Man, I'll be honest with you, when I first started, it was very spiritual for me, because it was hard. Yeah. And when they say commercial real estate is hard, it is hard. It's not for everybody.
So if you're thinking about starting a family, because now you're married at this point, right? How is your wife dealing with this transition? Because you mentioned before that you had read you don't make any money the first year.
Right.
So how is that? Take us back to that first year of how your wife dealt with it and all that stuff.
So my wife was actually working at one of the firms that I was, in my old business, with one of the attorneys, and so she was working. I remember getting my license, going to church, And pastor obviously, was part of the whole situation, part of the scenario. He was always kind of, prayed for me, helped, was actually an instrument in me getting my license. He tells me, hey, approach this gentleman at the church. He's wealthy. He's a wealthy real estate, owner. His name was Paco. He's a Spaniard. So I tell Mr. Paco, I say, hey, I have my real estate license. I'm into commercial. I'm doing commercial real estate. And at that precise moment, he looks at me and says, find me a good deal. I have $30 million to buy a building, a good deal.
Yeah.
And then he points where our church is at. There's a Bank United building, office building. He says, I'm trying to buy that building. I like it, but it's, we're still kind of negotiating. So at that time, I didn't know, I go to my brokers. I said, hey, I have this guy, this old man at the church. He has $30 million to buy a building, to buy a deal.
Wow.
And they all kind of looked at each other and said, we got the deal for him. So that was my first pop, my first, deal that I did that kind of gave me some breathing room.
How long did that take in order to materialize? Like maybe 6 months?
It probably took about, a few months.
When you look at your family, what type of a vision do you have for them? I know that's something that's really big for men of God, to have a vision for themselves, for their family. Mm-hmm. Where do you see, the future of your family going?
Really being the leader of my home, instructing, being there for them, being accessible, because they're, raising kids, they're going to have questions. They have questions for everything.
Right. And that's an interesting point, though, because I think that's where a lot of men, tend to veer off. The amount of time that you spend cultivating these relationships. When do you say to yourself, listen, I've got to unplug from this and go home? Yeah. Or, what's that like?
There is. Listen, I've met guys that they don't do that, and it causes them their family, their wife, because we're called to provide, right? As men of God. Mm-hmm. But a lot of men take that overboard, and they kind of get into this zone that they want more and more, and they don't know how to kind of divide family time with work time.
Right.
And I've seen guys very wealthy and have lost their families, because of that.
So you kind of design a schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
That centers around controlling your time.
Right. Yeah. 9 to 5. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
I mean, that's something that when you talk about controlling your schedule and time, it's usually a byproduct of something. For instance, I recently wrote a book, and inside of the book, I talk about how, you need to be able to value those around you. And I started chasing success and almost lost my family. So it's like, I know that normally coming to that conclusion of, hey, I need to design a 9 to 5 schedule. Mm-hmm. How did you do that? Did your wife tell you? Was it, because usually this stuff requires calibration. You know what I mean?
Essentially, commercial real estate is a 9 to 5. At least business owners are on the clock 9 to 5.
Right. So usually, they're not normally going to be available after that.
They won't normally be. Maybe the CEOs, and you might catch them after, but I knew I had to be out by that time.
Well, the other side of it too is that you are constantly around people that have high net worth, mm-hmm. right? And how do you balance your convictions as a man of God, and kind of, leading a friendship or a business relationship with these people? Like, for instance, I recently went out to, there was a company that was interested in acquiring my company. And I went to their office, and these guys started taking shots. Mm-hmm. They had expensive bottles of alcohol, mm-hmm. and I don't drink alcohol. So in the midst of us saying, hey, this was a great transaction, these guys are slamming down shots. And, obviously we're not going to get into the whole no alcohol discussion. We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
And it's just that's not necessary, but I'll say, how do you balance that?
That's a very dangerous situation, especially if you had issues with that before. And I had, at the age of 13, at a very young age, I would go out and drink, and I needed to drink in order to have fun.
Right. I was the same way.
For a very long time. Yeah. So, like I know alcohol, if it escalates, it can get really bad.
Right.
So I don't go to networking events. People say, "Oh, you want to be successful? Go to networking events. You're gonna meet a lot of big people." Man, if you're at that level now, you gotta meet with the big guys, and you gotta be here. You gotta be there. I was like, no, I don't need to be anywhere.
No, you need to be where God tells you to be.
I just literally pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I make calls. I know who I'm calling,
Right.
and I know what they want.
There's a lot of Christians too that think, I've got to make myself available. Like you said a moment ago, this guy was, saying, hey, if you're going to be successful, then you have to do this.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, then you have to do that.
Yeah.
And I struggled in the same areas with, being in the technology industry, because it was always like, we have to close a big deal and we're going to have to, fly on a private jet with Oracle in order to get a big contract.
Right.
And at first I was thinking to myself, well, whatever it takes. But as time went on, I had to apply the, what does it profit a man, if he would gain the whole world and lose his soul. And when you're talking to men, maybe not in the state of them being inebriated, but after the fact, have you ever had an opportunity to share your faith with them, with one of like your clients or business partners?
Yeah. And the way I do it is more like if I hear them talking about a situation, and that's my way in,
Yeah.
Like if they're going through a situation
With their wife or
either
their
with
son.
their wife or their son,
Yeah.
that's a moment for me to kind of give my 2 cents in what I think, what the word says on that situation, and that's how I kind of approach it.
One of the things about you is that you've had a really, really great approach to evangelism.
Yeah.
Because I've had an opportunity in these years to spend a lot of time with you, and you really like evangelizing.
Yeah.
You enjoy that.
Yeah.
And presenting the gospel to people, and we all should, but I'm saying you do it in a way that's relevant to your generation, and I always wondered how you balance that.
So I think that part of that is really knowing and being confident in who you are in Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And that automatically reflects. So it's kind of like saying you're a Christian without actually saying it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So just living it and having joy and knowing who you are. And I think that's what really attracts people, is like, why is this guy so happy and full of energy? And
you have a big family, and I've had a chance to hang out with you and your family at restaurants and business meetings, and I know your family. What about the unbelievers in your family? That is probably one of, like, next to the alcohol and money, it's like the family members is up there, man, in terms of stumbling blocks.
Yes.
People having confusion and vertigo in their Christianity. It creates misdirection.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
That for me was the hardest thing. So being together in family gatherings, having a drink, and that can easily escalate because you feel that level of comfort when you're with them. You know what I mean?
So it's Thanksgiving. What do you do?
When you're entering into these situations, you have to know already in your mind.
Right.
You have to know where you're getting yourself into.
Right.
So that automatically happens.
If you go over Theo's house,
right, like
you need to understand he's gonna act silly.
Like these things ahead of time, so you know yourself. If this is what I'm gonna do when I get there. So there's always a time. Like God will never tempt you to where you can't handle it.
Right.
Right. You will never be tempted to that level. Like where people say, "Oh, I just fell." No, you kind of had you knew some sense that something was going to happen,
right,
at some moment or another.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? So when I go to Thanksgiving and it's family time, what might happen is, you'll tell yourself, I might have a drink and just settle, but that can easily escalate. And just idle talk or vulgar, just speech and conversations that the kids don't need to hear.
Super inappropriate.
That stuff can always linger on, especially in family, gatherings like that.
So what? So is it like we're gonna have turkey, stuffing, we're gonna pray, and I'm leaving? Do you do that kind of format where you're like, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then we're leaving? Is that kind of like the approach that you have?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to be present. You show, you pray. You kind of there with your family. But when things start to escalate and people start to drink,
we're gone.
That's your cue right there.
And my wife and I struggled with this, because my wife's family is big. We're sitting there on Thanksgiving, and it's the same thing. Shots getting slammed, all kinds of and I'm just feeling super inappropriate with this. After like the fourth year, look, I really gave this thing one heck of a roll. I mean, I really tried to work with these people. And I told them, guys, here's the deal. Come to my house because we need to be able to control the environment.
Yeah.
Because you guys are
because you want to be with
loose
them.
cannons.
You want to be able to hang out with them.
You got
but,
come over.
You can't. That's
absolutely. And then we do the door check, and it's like, but you have a case of beer in your hand. No, but beer is legal, not here. Consider this a free zone. You know, and and it's one of those things where we were controlling the environment and people stopped coming over.
Yeah, and listen, you're gonna rub them off the wrong way.
And now I gotta get on a Zoom meeting. It's one of those things. But I could definitely appreciate that, man. I've always loved the fact that you're a man of God. You're not ashamed to come out and tell anybody about your faith. You guys ever sit back, you and Natasha, as looking at your family and looking at everything and how far you guys have come and go, man, what life would have been like had we not have made the decision that we made? Pastor Molina tells you, listen, you need to abstain from having relationships, with your then girlfriend.
That's a very good question. If it wasn't for that, we would have, I don't even know if we would have been together. Because I wasn't ready at that time, both spiritually, financially, and if I would have not taken his counsel at that time, we probably would have had kids, and she probably would have been with someone else. I probably would have been in a different relationship, or my third, fourth relationship, who knows? But that was vital at that time because I wasn't ready. I wasn't a man yet. I was lost. So it would have been a disaster. We use that now. So my brother-in-law is going through a similar scenario. So I see myself in him. And I tell him the exact same thing. I was like, if you want to start something wrong, it's going to end wrong. It's just not going to work out.
Amen.
So that we definitely use that as a testimony.
So that one decision that you made literally not only changed the course of your life, but it also changed the course of your daughter's life.
Yeah.
Because if you guys would have started that relationship out of order and ended up divorcing, all of your daughters would have been confronted with that same reality.
And they would have seen that pattern over, and they would have lived that pattern over and over. Because you see that today.
Yeah. When I listen to you, one of the things that comes to mind is I think of one of the things that Jesus said. And while he said many powerful things, one of the things that I remember the most when I think about family and I hear your story is it's about building on the rock. And Jesus compares the situation to being strong winds, and those people who built their foundations on straw. When the winds come, everything falls to the ground. But you've chosen to build on the rock, and that's a wise man.
There's a lot of examples out there, and you'll see families that don't have Christ at the center of it, and they look amazing from the outside in, but we don't know those issues in the inside. You know what I mean? And that's something that I battled with. I'm like, man, these people are not Christian, and they have what looks to be a great family, and then you'll see months or years later they're divorced.
The winds came.
Yeah.
And all that
because
stuff
it
just
wasn't
goes
on the rock.
down.
Yeah, so I've witnessed that, and I think that's powerful, because even though you might, sometimes you might think, oh, I'm not gonna witness to this person because they look like they have it all straightened out. That's not true, because you don't know. A lot of people put a very good facade,
absolutely,
in this appearance that everything's okay, but deep down inside, it's a disaster at home.
Super good.
You know what I mean?
I want to thank you for taking the time to come here. It was really an honor. I mean that, to have you come on board, and we want to let people know who you are, where they can find you, what's your company name. So go ahead and let us know that. What's the name of your firm?
The name of the firm is Mandich Real Estate Advisors.
Okay. You have a website?
I'm a partner there. Yeah, it's MandichRealEstateAdvisors.com.
Okay.
Mandich is MANDICH Advisors. MandichRealEstateAdvisors.com. And you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, George Smith, or it's George Smith -CRE for commercial real estate.
We want to let you guys know that we'll be putting Mandich Real Estate Advisors contact info so you guys can reach out to George individually. Subscribe, continue to get connected with us, and as time goes on, we want to give you an opportunity to reach out to us individually, whether it be with a contact number or email. We want to give you guys, the opportunity to get connected with us and other men of God. This isn't something where we just want to project something to you. We also want to be available for you to serve our community and do it all for the glory of God. God bless you guys. I'm breaking the mold. I go for the gold. What is a champion? One who can give up his throne.